Okay, I'm Bill Peel. My label shows iPad 60, I think, but I don't know. I'll have to get a lesson on how to change that.
I'll change it for you so we remember your name.
Okay, good. I'm a Lindsay native. I was born and raised in Lindsay and left at the end of LCBI in 1957. I worked for General Motors all my career, retired in 96. And at that point, I was living in London, Ontario. And I've just recently moved to Bobcaygeon. I'm living in Port 32 in Bobcaygeon. And nice to be back in the area that I was raised in. And just going through all the properties that are here brought back a lot of memories. I know a lot of them quite well. So happy to be part of the group and to meet everybody.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Bill. So my name's Athol Hart, and I'm just recently been elected chair of this Municipal Heritage Committee. And my background is in heritage, and I've been working in the heritage field all my life. And so I'm very happy to be here and to have new members joining us and bringing us new blood and revitalization. And we're hoping we can form a really active team here. So how about—
Do we all want to go around and do a quick introduction?
I think we should.
Yes.
Just a few words.
Yep.
Want me to go next?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm Jim Garbett. I'm the current vice chair. I've been, I guess, longstanding vice chair for quite some time. I've been with the committee for, I honestly don't know. It's probably over 10 or 12 years anyway. I came originally from the Mississauga area, Cooksville, Etobicoke Creek area. I was raised with a family that on a century farm that was very passionate about our history. Background in social services for 20 some odd years. Left that to become an entrepreneur and a professional advocate. I own several buildings in downtown Lindsay in the Heritage District and a buy and sell shop. My wife and I have that. We live on a fair amount of acreage on again, a century farm in Dunsford. And you know, just under 5 years. Had a heritage.
I guess we've lost Jim in sentence here. Could I ask Ron to speak next? Or
Thanks.
are you,
Thanks,
are you
Athol.
back?
Oh, is Jim back there, or can I go ahead?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to welcome Julia, John,
I
David.
think we're—
I just wanted to welcome Julia, John, and David, and Bill to the committee. My name's Ron Ashmore. I'm the council representative for the committee. I'm councillor for Ward 6, which is takes in Omemee, Rayborough, Dunsford, Downeyville area, and I go up to Pigeon Lake, or go toward all along Pigeon Lake on the west side and the south side of Sturgeon Lake. So quite a big area. About 10,000 people, 9,500 people represent. And so one of the committees I'm on is the Heritage Committee, and I really enjoy it here. So, and with people that I work with here, learning a lot. I have a farm background, dairy farm background, and right now I'm also a mortgage agent for a company that I do part-time, but this is pretty well full-time for me now, this business of being in council. And yeah, like I really enjoy this committee, and I'm glad that the mayor put me on it, and I'm here to help you out. Anything that has to come to council, I'm here to advocate for the group. So and again, I'd like to welcome everybody on board for this new session, this new year. Thanks.
Okay. Bill, could you speak to us a little bit?
Sure, I'm Bill Bateman. I'm retired. We have a farm just outside Bethany. I've been a longtime member of the committee, so I'm certainly pleased that we have new members. It's always nice to see new faces.
Good, thank you. So Anne, would you like to tell us about you a bit? You're
on
muted.
Pushing the
There
wrong
we go.
button, sorry. I'm in Bob Cajun. I cottaged here my whole life. I grew up in Oakville with lots of lovely heritage buildings around us. Moved here part-time about 15 years ago, from April to November. Moved here full-time 6 years ago, and started volunteering in Bob Cajun with Impact 32 and a few other groups, Environmental Action, Bob Cajun. Got involved in the communities in Bloom, and from there realized that one of the categories for that was judging it in heritage conservation, and realized although we have Settlers Village and a great museum, there wasn't a lot that had been done for the buildings around town. So when the position came up a few years ago on the Heritage Committee, I joined, and I have to say I'm really pleased to see the buildings getting listed in Bob Cajun. And currently I'm working on the Edgewood dry stack wall project in Bob Cajun and getting it designated, and appreciate this committee's help with getting that through and done. Thank you. That's me.
Rob?
Hey guys, great to see some new members. Welcome. I'm Rob Macklem. I've been a member of the committee for about 6 years now. I'm a carpenter, built my house 27 years ago, raised my 3 kids in the area, and I'm very interested in seeing this committee work for the future because it's a great place to be. Well,
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Is Ian with us yet, Emily?
No, he's not. So if Ian joins us later, he can introduce himself.
Okay, well, on behalf of the committee, welcome. And I'm sure we'll do some vital work in this whole great city of ours, which has a massive number of villages in it. And we're hoping to get as much done in the villages as well as we have in Lindsay. So welcome. So can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Okay, and a seconder, please.
I'll second.
Okay, Bill seconds. Thank you. I guess we have 2 Bills now, so can I call you William?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll have William Bateman and Bill Peel. Okay.
Sorry, Athol, just on the note of the agenda, Anne has asked that we move the 28 Boyd Street alteration application to the beginning of the report, so she might have to leave. We talked about that before the meeting.
All right. Is everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, any declarations of pecuniary interest in anything that's on the agenda this evening?
None.
There being none, let's move on to the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read them?
Yes.
Do I have a mover?
I'll move them.
That was Rob.
yep.
And do I have a seconder?
I'll second Jim.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
Thank you. I cannot see everybody at the same time on the screen. Is there any way to fix that, Emily? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, including Emily and myself.
Are you on an iPad or something?
No?
Oh, that's odd. There's a little thing up in the top corner that says view. You should be
Yes.
able to toggle from speaker to gallery view. And if you make sure it says gallery view, you should be able to see everybody.
Okay. There you are. Thank you. Thank you for telling me how to do that too. So we want to move forward with this. So we have a mover and a seconder, and I didn't see if all those were in favor because I couldn't see everybody. Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved. Can we move forward then with the item requested 28 Boyd Street? So on our, in our pile of information, or what you were sent in your email, there's a description of the changes that are imminent or requested on this location.
If you're looking for it, it's page 75.
Thank you.
That helps. Right, page 75, and can you give us some background on this, Emily?
Yeah, sure. So, so this is an alteration application for the property 28 Boyd Street. So that's the Edgewood dry stone wall, the project that Anne mentioned earlier. So this is the application to do the restoration work on it. And actually after this, I'll let Anne give people more detail on it because it's she's the one spearheading this project. So in order for the wall to undergo restoration, the heritage permit has to be granted for that. And just so everybody is aware, just for this application and for other applications going forward, the city requires that any project that receives funding, any heritage related project that receives funding from the city get a heritage permit. So this would require a heritage permit anyways. But for things like painting, for example, that wouldn't normally require a heritage permit. If they're getting money from the city, they still have to get approval from this committee. So that's just kind of an FYI for everybody for future. So I might hand it over to Anne to give the background on this. And just as an FYI, since we've gone through this, the designation for process for this in the fall, the bylaw was passed last Thursday, which is great news. So it's bylaw, if you want to know, it's 2021-003. Not that that really matters, but I can circulate that around as well, just so people can see it. But we've already seen most of that information in the report we got in the fall.
I found it interesting that it was 003 because we've been working on this for almost 3 years. Well, I've talked about this project before. I think everybody knows where the wall is. And in the report, we've submitted some pictures. It flanks either side of the driveway going into Case Manor. It runs east-west. The west side of the wall is in much worse shape than the east side. So our intention is to start with the east wall or the west wall and work our way east depending on funding. Hopefully we can do it all in one summer, but we may have to split it into 2 years. We did get some trust fund money, so need this permit, and it is heritage designated, so need the permit. I've checked with building. The only permit that we need is the heritage one. The plan is to restore the wall to what it would have looked like when it was built, to use the heritage technique, the original technique, which is the 2 walls connected together with a through stone and a harding stone and a capstone on top, as shown in the diagram there. We have engaged John Shaw Remington, who's the president of the Dry Stone Walling across Canada. We do have to, depending on pandemic, kind of schedule it up with him, but he's very dedicated to the project and does walls and this type of thing all over the world. He trains people and he's committed to rebuilding it in the form that it was built in originally with no mortar. In the long run, that will help sustain the wall because the mortar has the issue with the freeze-thaw cycle. That you see the issues that they have with the wall that goes around the library in Bobcaygeon. So the plan is to build it the same as it is now, same height. We may have a little bit of trouble with the height depending on stone. Stones have been stolen over the years and disappeared. We do have the donation from the other Boyd property. There is remnants of the old Wilson Boyd wall left there, and they will donate the stone so that it's from the same era and the same family, and use that to fill in where we are short on stone.
Will he be building it, or are you looking for volunteers to help put the wall back together? Anne?
That's a really good question, Athol. He plans on building it with some of his team members. However, we've looked at, and he's also would be in agreement of having some volunteers work with him to learn the process, so that, heaven forbid, we do have problems. There shouldn't be, but if we do, we would have people in the town that can do this. The other thing that he would be fine with working with us too is, depending on funding, we may need to do what we call some experience funding, where regional tourism will help us out, and we can actually have people come for a weekend and learn how to do the technique and pay to do that. It's going to be just for the wall, not including fencing or anything like that. It's a $60,000 project to do both sides. We do have some funds from the trust fund. We do have a donor, and because the property sits at Case Manor, they were going to rip it down. It was going to cost them $15,000 to tear it down. They've put that $15,000 forward. So we're about halfway in our funding without having gone out to the public yet. So we're not sure if we'll do that experience funding, but I think from a fund standpoint, and to get people engaged in the technique and the wall itself, it would be something that we would like to do while we're doing the restoration, is to get people involved and interested in the heritage.
I think that would be fantastic, a fantastic opportunity, and I would be willing to volunteer. So it's always amazed me how in Scotland you can go and find these stone walls that have existed there for hundreds of years, and there's not a bit of mortar in them. So I truly would like to offer to volunteer if you are accepting volunteers.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and it's interesting that you say that about the walls, because this wall itself, any of the issues that it has are because of human intervention. Because snowplows were pushing snow up against it. The fire hydrant that sits there was being back flushed against it. Weeds were allowed to grow over it, truck backed into it. So it's all things that have happened that, other than the truck backing into it, we'll be able to mitigate moving forward. So hopefully it won't need any restoration. Once it's done, it should be good for another 130 years. It's 130 years old now.
Does anyone else have questions or comments for Anne? Okay, there being none. Anne, would you like to put a motion forward?
Sure, absolutely. If I'm allowed to do that in it, that I'm bringing this one forward, I would love to put the motion forward. Thank you.
I think you should.
Okay, motion. I put a motion forward to approve the heritage application request for the Edgewood dry stack wall for 28 Boyd Street in Bobcaygeon.
Do I have a seconder?
I second.
Julia seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is a unanimously approved motion.
Thank
you.
That's fabulous.
Thank you, Anne. So moving forward then, do we have any presentations or deputations that I'm unaware of, Emily?
No.
So great. We can move on to the listing of properties on the Heritage Register. And we've chosen to do 50 at the beginning, even though our original list was about twice that. And you all have the pictures in front of you of the 50 homes that we're asking to be placed on the register.
So I'll just give it, for the people who are new on the committee, I'll just give you a rundown kind of how this works. So we started listing properties in 2019. And the first list we brought forward only had 7 properties on it, just to kind of ease council into it. And we brought forward a couple other lists of properties last year. So right now we have about 85 properties or so listed on the Heritage Register. So council seems to like it when we bring it to them in chunks. So this is chunk number 1 for 2021. And so these properties, if people want stuff listed, they usually tell me. I go around, I take the pictures, do the research, and pull this together. When I'm putting these together, I try and do stuff from all the different communities and former townships, just so stuff is kind of spread out a bit, so it's not all Lindsay centric. as things I think have been in the past. So that's sort of how the properties are chosen. But for the next list, which hopefully we'll do in a couple of months, if you do have stuff that you want to see listed, just keep note of that and tell me so it can be added to the next round. For the people who are new on the committee who haven't gotten a big whack of these to look at before.
Emily, I have a question. Does the owner of the property have to agree to the being on the listing?
No. So the process that we use is we do notify the owners. So there's some changes coming forward to the Heritage Act where we are going to be required to notify the owners, which does allow them to object. But we actually send the owners a letter saying, FYI, this is happening. But it's not, we're not asking for permission, we're just telling them. And then council at the end of the day is the one that makes the decision. So if an owner doesn't want to be listed on the register, they can go to council and ask that council doesn't include them. But at the end of the day, council can choose to not add them or council can choose to ignore them. So they're the final decision maker, but we don't ask for permission.
Just in reading the description, it looks like there's a distinction between listing and designation. That this is the listing step, but it could later go to designation. Is that correct?
That's right. So designation is when people have to get heritage permits to do various work. This is just, they can't demolish it without giving 60 days notice to the municipality. Generally speaking, once it's listed, we don't really pursue it towards designation unless there's a really good reason for that. Sometimes people request that, which is fine. Or if they were seeking demolition, then we might pursue designation as well. We haven't actively pursued designating listed properties. That's not saying we can't, but we just haven't in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's important under the Act, Bill, to know that the municipality has the right to designate even if the owner does not wish to. And that has been proven in the courts in the past, but I don't believe we've had any issues with that in Kawartha Lakes. Have we, Emily, to your knowledge?
Well, not really. I mean, I would say that in general, maybe Ron will have some other insight on this, but council generally prefers that the owner is on side before it's designated. We haven't really had a big test of this yet.
All right,
but
Ron?
we can't ask for permission.
Yeah, what we did was give the owners the courtesy of a letter, just tell them that we're going to be listing it and they have their options of whether they want to, appear before council or not. But generally it's been pretty well received. There hasn't been much really negative reaction to this process, but we've made sure that everybody is properly notified by registered mail, I believe, Emily. So it's made it easier. Instead of them just reading it in the council agenda, they know beforehand that it's going to be on the agenda. So, but I had a question on one property, if I could.
Well, thanks for the explanation.
I have a question. So in the Kawartha Lakes, there is a heritage registry. There's a list of homes that are already registered. When did that all take place? Would you know? Do you recall how long ago were these homes? Some of them are famous. Some of them were the home of the premier, and so on. They have plaques on them. When would that list have been made? Just over time? Were you involved in that?
Yes, I mean the first designations here started, I think, in the 70s. So I wasn't involved.
You weren't born.
I wasn't involved in that. And the designations have gone forward over the years, like through the pre-amalgamation municipalities, and then after Kawartha Lakes became Kawartha Lakes. But then our actual listing of properties, we only started doing that in 2019.
That is
so
new.
that's a really new thing for this municipality. So that the listed properties are not, that's not old.
And will they eventually go on that list, the heritage registry, or was that just separate? Listing is not going to show on that list?
Yeah, so listed properties are on the heritage register. So the heritage register has 3 sections. There's a designated property section, which is all the properties designated by bylaw. There's a section for properties or for heritage conservation districts. So for our 2 conservation districts that we have, and then there's a 3rd section for listed properties.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it.
It's a big document. You've got to go to the end to get to the listing.
Okay.
I have a
Are
question.
there any other questions or discussion?
I have a
I
question.
think Ron had a question.
Ron?
Yeah, thank you.
And then I'll come back to you, John.
For you to Emily, number 34 Lindsay Street South, the proponents of that project came to this meeting a couple of months ago, and they were thinking of just saving the facade of the front of it. Does this designation apply to the whole building or just to the front?
So the listing applies to the whole building, and actually the reason that I put it on there is because we had that proposal come forward. Because it means that when those proponents for that development come forward, it'll automatically come to the committee. So it gives this committee some skin in the game when it comes to that development. So previously, this building is not in the downtown Lindsay Conservation District. It's only next to it, which means that this committee has a say, but it doesn't really. It's kind of an awkward gray area. So that's why I listed it. To make sure that this committee would be an active participant in that development proposal.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, the act says that all facades of a building are under the act. John?
I did some work on one of these buildings in Caucasian. Should I need to like abstain from that one, or how does that work?
No, it's fine. Just so how how the pecuniary interest stuff works. Like if you're making money off of it, then you should abstain.
All
But if if you've worked on it in the past, that's not a big deal.
right. Okay.
All right, may I ask someone to move this, that this goes to council as we have it? Ann Nadir moves so, and seconded by Rob.
Sounds good.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
One question, is this confidential or is it something you can share with friends, the description of the properties?
No, it's a public agenda. This is published on
Yes.
the city's website, so you can share whatever you want that's in the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
I only have some comment here, Emily. We need to go back through it and make sure it's grammatically correct. There are some places where I just picked up that there's a word or something missing. For
Okay, well, just send me
instance-
those edits. That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, I mean that's fine. If anyone picks up typos and stuff, just tell me because there's a lot of text here. So I'm
No,
gonna miss
it's
something.
tons. Yeah, I'm sure you are. So that is unanimously approved. And we move on to the next item in our agenda, which is the committee terms of reference. And you'll find those, I believe, on page 64. So I think this is particularly an interesting thing to have when we have 3 new members on our committee tonight. So do you want to give us a background of why it's on here again tonight?
Yeah, so
Emily?
we talked, sure. Yeah, so we talked about this at our last meeting. And what we were talking about is the composition of the committee. So as I think most people know, there are 12 members of the committee, one of whom is our council rep, so Ron. And sorry, Ron, we're keeping you. But what we had talked about is at the moment, the other 11 members are composed of 9 members of the general public, so whoever wants to be involved, a rep from the downtown Lindsay Heritage Conservation District and a rep from the Oak Street Conservation District. And one of the things that we found is that filling these 2 positions is really difficult. So we've actually turned people away from the committee while we're still leaving the Oak Street position vacant, because they're not from the conservation district. So it leaves us in an awkward position where we have this vacant position that we can't fill, even though there are interested applicants. And looking forward in terms of some of our goals for the committee, with the new Old Mill Conservation District, it would leave us in a position where we would also have to have a rep for the Old Mill Conservation District when it's designated, which would leave us with even fewer reps that we could have for members of the public. So it's a bit problematic in terms of filling the committee. Our downtown rep at the moment is Jim, who did not apply to be the rep for the downtown. We just assigned him as that, as you know, Jim, because he owns a business in the downtown. So presumably, if Jim left the committee, we may also have a problem filling that seat too. So it was just something we had discussed at the committee last time. So I brought forward the report, and if the committee wants to amend that for future, then they can make a recommendation to council to do so. So I've talked to the clerk's office about how this would work. And essentially it's fairly straightforward, is the committee would just make the motion to amend their terms of reference, and it would have to go to council for approval. And that would be it. It's a fairly easy process to do that if it's something the committee wants to do.
It's also important if we move into the area of natural heritage, as we've discussed in the recent past, designating a portion of the river under the Heritage Act. And unless Old Man River wants to come on as a rep, it makes it difficult when you get into other kinds of things. So do I have any questions or comments?
Well, yes, I'm not sure I understand exactly. From what I read, I thought you were eliminating the position, which would leave you with just as many people as you have now, would you not?
We are not intending to eliminate the position. We are intending to eliminate it being designated to a specific area.
Okay, so it would open it up to another person. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That
And
makes
then the committee wouldn't always be a member short.
right.
And that could grow as we get more heritage conservation districts. Any other comments or questions? Could I have someone make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right. And do I have a seconder?
I would second.
Okay, we have William and Bill. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Thank you. So we're moving right along tonight. So that brings us down to the planning application comments. And I have asked that Emily include in this the information package of what it is that I actually sent on behalf of the committee to council. So in your packages, you will see the actual letters that Emily and I worked on, resulting from the minutes of our last meeting.
Sorry,
They're
what
there
page?
for your information as they've already gone.
It's page 86.
Because I like to have transparency, everything I do on your behalf, I will certainly be sharing with you as a committee.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
So the letters that went to council are included, and the first one is on page 89 and relates to the 46 to 66 William Street North application. And the second one relating to the Fenland Falls project is on page, if it wasn't sticking together. 92. So it just gives you a reference as to the effectiveness that the committee has told us these things, and we have forwarded them on to council on behalf of the committee. Any comments, questions? Yes, Ron.
I was just wondering, did we ask for the developers to come to the meeting or have any input for this 46 William Street North? Have we reached out to them?
I believe we did.
Yeah, that's included in the comments.
It's right in the letter there. So there are things that we've been finding and discussing since, and Ian was good enough to forward on to all of us that were on the committee at the time, the pictures of, for instance, a tannery that was on the property that is not mentioned in their studies. So we have some things that we wish to talk to the developer about, if in fact they will be kind enough to join us. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Actually, quick question, Athol. Will they be reaching out directly, or will they be reaching out through David Harding? David, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
There he is.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So
So
David,
did
you
you
got
hear
our
my question?
letter.
I did, yes, thank you. So it hasn't been forwarded to them yet because what planning wants to do is do a comprehensive submission package back to the applicant so that they're not trying to work to satisfy one department and that becomes counter to what another agency such as yourselves is asking for. But that is going to be sent to them. And they would be reaching back out, I believe, to me directly. And I'll
Okay.
just make sure that they are then routed through to Emily so that they can get on the appropriate agenda.
Yeah, David
Great.
and I can coordinate that after that, those comments have gone to them.
Thanks, David.
Great.
Thanks, Emil.
Thank you, David. All right, any other questions? There being none, let's move on to the last item on our agenda, which is an application for consent for 170 William Street North, Lindsay, which is a severance of property issue. Can you give us any background more on that, Emily?
Yeah, so this is a severance. It's across the road from a designated property. So the designated property is 155 William Street North, which is a large Victorian brick home. So this severance, it's technically counted as adjacent because under the official plan across the road is adjacent. So the committee could comment on it if they so choose. So what the severance does is the lot currently has a home on it and they're severing off a portion of that lot to build a new single family home on it. The neighborhood itself is pretty mixed. So there's a range of different housing sizes, styles, types in there. There's a lot of historic homes, but there's some newer ones as well. So this is an opportunity for the committee to comment on this application if they so choose.
Is this severance an appropriate size for a separate lot? It seems to me a little small.
I think
I
David
agree.
can comment on
I
that
agree.
later.
I agree as well.
Very narrow, 30, it's about 30 feet wide. And where are they gonna park? That's my thing. I don't
I
see,
can
they
just,
can't get by the house to park behind, so it's gonna be on the front.
I'll just speak if I can, Athol.
Sorry. oh,
Yes,
sorry.
okay, good. David, go
and,
ahead.
To the new members, so hello. I am I'm not a voting member of the committee. I am the committee's planning resource, so I represent the planning division. So if there's any land use planning questions you have that come up during the meeting or that on other applications you're aware of, I can take that back to other planning staff to get some answers for you. So in this particular case, this is my severance file actually. So the property
Oh.
is within the R3 zone. So the actual minimum lot size in the R3 zone is 300 square meters. So they do just barely squeeze above that threshold there. And yes, you are correct. In terms of the built form they are proposing, there is a elevation on the next page. So this house
Yes,
is
it's on
going
page
to-
97.
Yes, so it is going to be the complete width of the lot minus your side yard setback. So parking is proposed to be on a pad in front of the house.
Hmm.
Well, there's nowhere else to park. So
question.
I mean, that's just my concern.
Yes, Jim? Jim?
Yeah, does that significantly change the character of the neighborhood in terms of the parking, in terms of the other surrounding houses? And are the other surrounding houses notified of this pending change?
I guess that goes back to David. How much notification are you giving to the neighborhood?
So it's a 60-meter circulation. So that works out to about 3 or 4 addresses on each lot line. And that's in accordance with our planning legislation. And there would have been a notice that was published in the paper as well. So that's
Are there, sorry. Are there any other houses in the neighborhood that permit parking in front of the house on the quote front yard?
I'm trying to think about that. I think
There
there
are.
are. Yeah, okay, thank you, Emily. I was pretty sure they were when I did my site walk. It's
Yeah.
it's a mixture. But yes, there are definitely some houses that do.
Yeah, I did a walk around as well, and it's some have it on the front, some have it on the side, some have, you know, garages and stuff. It's really mixed in terms of what's there aesthetically.
If it's already there, it's hard to deny them the same thing.
Yeah, Ethel, can I ask a question? Was there any kind of concern raised by the designated property across the street?
Yes. They are not pleased with it. And I'm just going to see if that made it in. The gist of the comments were that they are a very large estate parcel, which they are, and they were not pleased to see a smaller property across the road from them. And there was some concern over what is that building going to look like, and is there going to be something that affects, is this going to be something that affects land value?
As a personal comment, I have an older home in Newmarket, and the house across the street was purchased and they paved their front yard and parked cars on it. This also did not make me very happy, and it does change the tone of a neighborhood. However, you're telling me, Emily, that there are other people who park on their front lawn?
Yeah.
And there's no requirement in our bylaws for landscaping front yards?
There's not. There is a restriction to how wide a driveway can be, and therefore the parking pad, but that's the only restriction we have.
So David, would this occupy the whole entire front of this house, this pad?
It would be, I'm just going to go back to the severance sketch here. Probably not. It would be, from what I can recall from the bylaw, I believe the maximum driveway width is 25 feet. So that would be the maximum that they could do for a curb cut and the parking pad extending in.
And the parking pad will be parallel to the front of the house or horizontal?
It is at their discretion, but I believe that the parking would be arranged such that it's perpendicular to the street. The depth is sufficient that they could.
Any further questions or comments? Bill? Sorry, William? Did I see
No, I
your
don't have a
hand up?
comment.
Bill? Did you have a comment, William?
I don't have a comment. I think Ann does.
I do.
Okay. Okay, yours is lit up, so on my screen, so that's why. And go ahead.
Quick question about the parking pad. I know in the city sometimes when they have that issue of the parking being right in front of the building, that they ask that they do it with some kind of paver setting grass so that when the car is not there, it looks a lot better. Is that something that can be asked for to satisfy maybe the idea of having it look more heritage for the people across the street? I don't know. Just a thought.
I think the challenge we run into is what sorts of, from a planning perspective, what sort of aesthetic control we have over a parcel. And really our only opportunity to exert that control is if we go through what's known as site plan approval, which really only applies to very high density or medium density residential or high density residential or your more commercial or industrial sites. And because this zone is for single detached, it doesn't fall within that parameter. So our opportunity to control landscaping and anything like that outside of what the bylaw specifies, which in this case is what the length of the curb cut can be, it's very limited.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. Did the Heritage property reach out to the Heritage Committee at all, Emily?
No.
You?
Just by way of answer to their question, does it affect property value? Yes, it does. I can say from experience, it does. It's one of the reasons I still own the house in Newmarket. Any other comments or questions?
Well,
Is
I
there-
just want to add, yes, that I did drive by there a couple of times just to kind of see it. And as you say, Emily, there are a lot of other homes on that strip. It's a big mixture. I mean, to me, it's just making it even worse. So of course, it would be nicer if it didn't happen, but it's not going to change a lot on the other hand, because it's already quite mixed and there are a lot of cars. And the property itself had like 2 cars already parked at the front. It's pretty congested there, but I don't think it'll change either way that much. But it's not, I would rather not see it change more personally. That's all I have to say.
There was another home recently built just down the street on the corner of Region in William. I guess that lot was severed off from the home on Regent Street, but it's right on the corner of William. That's sort of a new kind of bungalow that was built in that area. So it's, you know, I guess the precedent has been set, I guess. I mean, that's, you know, they built a newer home in a sort of mature neighborhood there. I'm not sure about the particulars of that house and how it was you know, approved or built or anything, but it's, I mean, it's a bit of a larger lot because it's on the corner, but it's still a pretty small home. Just not sure if anyone was, I just watched them build that over the past year, and that was just my observation, that's all.
Does anyone on the committee have any comments about the facade drawing that's located here?
It's not too bad. I mean, it's pretty good as far as that goes, I think.
Okay, a question,
Yes.
please. The designated property, just the particulars of that particular property. Is there significant history to this property, or was are the owners right now, they're the ones that designated the property?
I'm not sure if they're the ones who designated the property, but it's the, what's that? The guy who owned the lumber company.
The
in Lindsay.
Carew lumber.
That guy. It's his
The old
house.
Carew property.
And one thing I will say is that designation bylaw is crap. It doesn't give any heritage attributes of the property. So if anyone wanted to sort of if you said it needs to go along with the heritage attributes of the property, well, there aren't any in that bylaw. It's really old. It's from the 80s. It just says the house is designated. That's all it says. In terms of sort of, I mean, if you did want to hang your hat on that bylaw, there's not much to go on there.
Is there any way we can consider as a committee of offering amendments to bylaws?
Oh, well, yes, I'll give you some
Didn't we just
background on
do
that
that?
too. Yes, so that happened in over 2017, 2018. Most of those old bylaws were amended, but the owners who had this particular property didn't want their bylaw amended. So Deborah, who was for those of you who were here, in my position at the time, didn't pursue that property. So they were sent a letter saying, we're doing this process to update all these bylaws, which we did for pretty much all the other ones, and they didn't want to participate. So they are left with the old and crappy bylaw that doesn't say anything.
So, and now they're trying to suggest they're hanging their hat on the fact that their house is designated. I see.
Yes.
Can I
So
ask-
it's not a good bylaw to argue anything against.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I, just another comment and a question. If it's the house I'm thinking of, it is a very distinguished house, and it's been on the house tour a number of times. And they're probably, if it's the same owners that owned it for a long, long time, they did a massive restoration. I consider it to be one of Lindsay's premier heritage homes. But they're probably in a position of advocating well for themselves, because if it's the same people, she was one of the most prominent lawyers in Lindsay, or Liz perhaps, if she hasn't retired. So, I'm surprised that they haven't reached out to us if they had deeper concerns.
Emily, could you go on Street View and pop up the house that this is being severed from, please?
Yep, if you just give me a minute, I will pull it up.
Jim, is it the one that has the big wrought iron fence in front of it? That's it, right?
I'm thinking it is, yeah.
The Carew house has brick. It's even got a brick wall at the front a bit.
Like brick and then the wrought irons on
That
top.
retaining wall, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's inside. It's
Oh, there's a
amazing.
truck.
It's a mansion. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay.
And let's see, and you can look at this large F-150, because that's what's in the front of the so ignoring the big truck, that's the designated property.
Yeah.
The one I was interested in seeing is the one that's across the street now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
So
that's good for comparison. That's good to note. I was going to ask for that next.
so it is. So the one being severed is this lot. So this red house is on the retained parcel, and the severed parcel is in between. It does look bigger in real life.
Can we look at the properties on either side of that house? There's
Sure.
the red brick one with the shed built on the front.
Yeah,
or
we'll do a
enclosed
little
porch.
neighborhood. We'll do the neighborhood tour. So this is the side where the house will be built. So these two gable front houses, there's the designated property. This house over here is a duplex. Ta-da, there's the duplex. This one has parking on the side. This is the new bungalow, which is on the corner and is mostly blanked out. It has front yard parking. This street, Regent Street, there's a little bit down there in the corner that kind of goes down to the river. These pretty much all have parking out front. And there's some small houses down here as well. So that's what's around the corner. Then if we go back here, there is this little guy. Oh yeah, we looked at that, sorry. And the duplex. And then on the other corner, there are two historic homes and a weird little bungalow. I think it's from the 70s. So that's a historic house as well. And then just sort of going around the corner here, there are a lot of these other kind of smaller gable front houses, just kind of in the general vicinity, as well as some newer houses like this one here, which is nondescript. And there is also, there's a little bungalow in here, an older house, and I think there's another older house in between those as well. Yeah, there's another gable front house there too. So that's kind of what you're looking at in the immediate vicinity. The one side of the block really is dominated by the designated property. It is a huge parcel.
All right, my personal comment is it does not seem to me to change the character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood already seems to have an established character. And I don't think that with this facade drawing that they've given us will look anything but better than the one beside it.
I have to agree. It looks like it fits right in there.
I have a quick question. I agree with what you're saying, Athol. The two houses that it's being tucked in between, how old are they? The one that it's being severed off in particular.
My
Yeah.
best guess would be around the turn of the century, sort of 1890 to 1910. I don't have a date on those, but that would be my best guess.
At the latest, they're like 1915 or so by the look of the architecture.
So I'm assuming that the person who's severing it off owns that other house and would be concerned about the foundation work and stuff, so would make sure that it's not going to hurt his original house. So I don't think we need to worry about that. Okay.
It more than likely has a foundation that can take it. It doesn't look like a rubble stone.
No.
Any other comments?
Just that one of the properties that we're listing in our previous meeting is at the corner of William and Elgin. It showed on that scan that you did, Emily. The
Oh yeah, it's just up on the corner there.
Sam
Yes.
Park and Home, yeah.
Okay, if the committee doesn't have any formal comments, that's also okay. You can just receive the report for information. If you don't want to provide formal comments to David.
Is there the possibility that more information will come forward?
David is the right person to ask for that.
Yeah, exactly. So whoever.
Well, I suppose I'm looking for what sort of information would.
I'm not quite sure. Just considering the significance of it, considering the fact that I do know some of the history of this, and the fact that these people, at least one of them was a lawyer, the other one is considered to be somewhat of a heritage expert. I'm just kind of intrigued that they haven't been more vocal about it. So I just didn't know if they had been if there was anything more coming. But if they haven't registered anything with heritage, I don't know what more we can comment on right at the moment. So
Yeah, there wouldn't really be. I can tell you that yes, you're correct.
I really don't know. Whatever it is.
David, go ahead.
That the credentials that Jim mentioned were also put forward in the objection letter. So I understand that one of the residents does have a background and perhaps has served in a previous iteration of this committee. But that's about it. So because they have submitted objection, this is something that will be going to the Committee of Adjustment for deliberation and decision. But that's really the only other information that I can provide at this time.
So it is destined for a Committee of Adjustment then?
That is correct.
Okay.
And so then with the Committee of Adjustment, because they're bringing it up from a heritage standpoint, would the Committee of Adjustment then request input from this committee?
We do have comments from Emily already, but if the committee, don't want to step on your toes, Emily, but if the committee wants to bolster that response, then they can choose to do so. But I don't think in the absence of comment that it's really going to change how the committee will deal with it. Their main question to me is going to be, has has Emily and the Heritage Committee been made aware of this proposal, and do they have comment?
Yeah, I guess without actually knowing what their commentary was or the document they filed with the city, I can't make a fully informed response to that. But I understand where you're coming from there. But and just this wasn't the exact property that I thought it was. And I didn't have time to actually drive by. I wish I had of earlier, because it might have changed my tone. Not that I would have talked to them or anything like that, but noting now the city property, noting that the individual has history, I think it was LACAC way back when, and noting the other involvements, it may not change anything, but I wish, perhaps that they had maybe just provided us some information, or someone to provide us that info. Are we able to see that report or what they filed?
Yeah, if you want to see the objection letter, yes. I don't know whether we can do a screen share to do that now, or if it could be passed around after the meeting, but yes.
Well, before I go out on that limb, is there anybody else who would like to see that information?
I would.
One thing I will say, Jim, is it's from the committee's perspective, it's not really the committee's job to respond to the concerns of the neighbors. It's more the committee's job to look at it from an objective heritage perspective, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand that clearly, but I was hoping that what they might be listing in their concerns, or if there is anything listed in it that provides more history on the building than what we're just generally talking about.
I'm a little more concerned when, Emily, you've already commented on this building.
Yep.
Can you tell us what you said?
Yeah, sure. I can find my comments. Just a second. I think I said pretty much what I said in the, just a second. Let me get the file.
Sorry about that, folks. I'm not trying to be a stickler here. I'm just trying to be thorough.
No, I appreciate it. I want to understand too.
So
Okay,
generally, I said that well, I said what I said in the report, that the addition of single family homes through infill is an appropriate way to increase density, and that the fact that it was a single family home and only 2 stories meant that I didn't anticipate it would have a negative impact on the designated property, and also that it was in a neighborhood of varying lot widths and sizes. So generally pretty much what we've already said here.
Okay.
But sorry, Emily, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Let's say we all didn't like it, then what? Could you just, so I understand how this works? Let's say we all didn't like it today, which is not the case, but what would happen?
So if the committee wanted to provide comments and said, this is gonna have a terrible impact on the heritage property, it doesn't fit in the neighborhood, et cetera, that kind of thing. The committee has that discussion. I write notes down, and then Athol puts together a formal letter, which goes to David, and then which gets submitted with the file to the Committee of Adjustment. So the Committee of Adjustment could see,
So
the
very
Heritage
clear
Committee
message.
doesn't think this is appropriate. That's how it works.
Okay, thank you.
So does anyone wish to, at this point, put forward a motion to either A, cite objection, or B, to say report received as information? How does the committee?
I'll give you a
Rob?
motion. I'll give you a motion to receive for information.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I see the heritage impact as negligible when I see the properties that surround it and face it already, so.
I'm sorry, who seconded that report or the recommendation?
William.
I did.
Oh, okay, thanks.
William
Great.
Bigman.
Sorry, I just missed that.
It's okay. All right, so moving on then with our agenda. There are the subcommittee reports. So the Heritage Conservation District Subcommittee has basically, if I can report for that committee, been told not to walk around or do this at this point in the lockdown procedure. But I know that Jim and I are starting to look at it, our area, the streets assigned to us, through Google Street View, and a lot of that can formulate at least the description of the houses, and you can start filling out your form. And then when the time comes that we're allowed, we can go out and survey and add any, particular details. But that's the only way I can see us doing anything at this point, under the advice of Emily. That's what council
Yes.
said.
And unfortunately, that's our direction from senior management, is don't do any field work. Unless
So-
it's, absolutely essential. Which this is not considered absolutely essential as much as we'd like to go do it. So hopefully we'll get on that in the next few weeks if the stay-at-home order is lifted. So fingers crossed, and I don't have anything else to add.
Well, perhaps they're just taking our interest and concern for us going out in the cold. So hopefully it'll be warmer when we have to do this. So
I have a
that's
question.
Yes, Ron?
Yeah, it's Jim. And I was just wondering how we can insert our new members into the process. I wouldn't want to deny them any joy and fun in this exercise.
Who wants to get cold with us? We have 3 teams, right?
Yep.
And we have 3 new members.
Yes, you
So-
can all join in if you want.
I'd
I
like
can
to
give
think-
If
a
you're
brief
interested, you can each have your name placed on a team to go through. And what we're doing is evaluating and describing buildings officially on our official form for the designation of this conservation district. If anyone's interested in helping us, you're certainly welcome.
Could Emily give us a little bit of background on what the committees are?
Sure. So this subcommittee has been formed as part of the Heritage Conservation District study that's going on right now. And it's for the old mill area of Lindsay. So it's that area east of Lindsay Street, then from the old mill park down to Durham Street. So it's just that kind of little circular area in there. And a couple of years ago, we had a request to undertake a Heritage Conservation District study in that area, which is awesome. And we're doing that right now. So the subcommittee is formed of, there's 5 people on the subcommittee. So Jim, Athel, Rob, and Bill, and Ian, who's not here tonight. So they've divided into groups, and also with me, and we're doing property surveys. So inventorying the whole area so we know what's there. And then also once that's done, they'll be participating more in the study process as well. So if you want to get involved in that, you can do that. And you don't have to decide right now. If you decide tomorrow, you're like, oh, I'd really like to do that, you can just let us know.
Well, we wouldn't
It's,
be just-
it's an interesting process for people who want to get their feet wet in what it is we do. It's a great way to do that. Okay, so we'll just make that suggestion is out there. If anyone wishes to respond, you can respond to Emily or myself anytime in the next week or so.
Good.
Okay, the next is the outreach subcommittee, and I think that Ian probably and Emily have been working on Doors Open, which is
Yeah,
one of
so-
our outreaches.
Yeah, so I was going to make Ian do the update tonight, but he's not here, so I guess I'm doing it. So yesterday, Ian and I attended a webinar that the Ontario Heritage Trust was holding about Doors Open planning for 2021. And sorry, just a second, I'll grab my notes here. So what they're looking at is they're looking at doing sort of hybrid events, and each community can choose what they want to do. So doing some virtual and digital Doors Open like they did in 2020, and also doing that with some in-person type events if that's feasible and safe. So really each community can decide what they want to do. For those of you who are new on the committee, we usually hold doors open in September. So we have some time to decide what we want to do. And obviously in terms of public health guidelines, we'll figure that out. But Doors Open is taking a new sort of year-round approach because there's a lot of digital content. So previously, people would have their content up starting in about April, and it would be up until October, and then it would be taken down so the next year's material can go up there. But because there's so many digital things, they're leaving it up year-round. So there's an opportunity to have some stuff up there in the digital realm that we might not have been able to do otherwise. So that's kind of interesting. They're doing primarily digital marketing this year, so that the lure brochure they usually do, they're not doing it just because everything's so up in the air and plans might change at the last minute. And they're going to be sending out guidelines for in-person events a little bit later on. Once I think they're working with public health officials to to put those guidelines together so that everybody is being safe. And they are applying for some funding as well to support both in-person and digital event production. So if there are digital type things that we might want to pursue, there may be some money from the trust to do that, which is awesome. So that's good. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So Ian and I were going to attend that, which we did, and then touch base about next steps, which we haven't done that yet because it was yesterday. And I'm also meeting with Donna and Lori. So for the new people, Donna is our culture officer at the city and Lori's our tourism officer. We're meeting next week and we're going to talk about things that they're doing that we might be able to integrate into Doors Open and have some kind of crossover there as well. So we might have some kind of fun stuff since there's going to be various things online. So once we get a little bit more into the planning, we'll have some more updates on that. And also for the people who are new, if you want to get involved in Doors Open, you can also do that.
Thank you very much, Emily. The other is the awards. And my feeling is because of our lockdown situation, we delayed the decision as to whether we're going to go ahead with them this year. We canceled them last year because of the situation. And I'm open to the committee saying they want to do it. I'm open to them saying, let's wait and find out what the rest of the year is going to be like. So we're just sitting here open.
And those normally take place in November for people who don't know about that. So there's lots of time.
Yeah. So that's the report from the outreach subcommittees. And then we have the sign subcommittee. And so far the sign subcommittee has met and done a walkabout downtown in the downtown area in the Heritage Conservation District. And I think we got a little chilled that day, didn't we, Anne? It was cold. And Jim has been going through his archives of the pictures that were taken, and we're going to put together a report to this committee relating to the signage that exists and what we propose to do for the signage in the future. And that's where that committee is at. I do believe that one of the signs we were not happy with is already under review, Emily.
Yeah, I'll give an update on that. So this is the Lindsay Bong and Dong and the associated Lindsay Cannabis store next door. So they didn't get a permit for any of those signs, not surprisingly. So I've been in contact with them and they are going to be taking those signs down and replacing them with new signs. However, they're going to have to apply for a permit with the new signs and get both a heritage permit and a sign permit for that. And they're getting new artwork for them, which is taking some time. And I told them they could leave the old signs up until they got the new ones because they're up already. So they should have a business sign while they're waiting on the new ones. But there are going to be new signs up hopefully in the next little while for that. So that's good.
Will that design be presented this committee?
Generally, we don't do that. Generally, it just goes through me, but I can give you a heads up if you want.
I think because we had objection to this as it exists, it might be a good idea just to show us what they're proposing.
Sure.
Yeah, can I ask a question, Ethel?
Certainly.
Yeah, if we could, actually, I understand it's you're Emily, and it's not to step on your toes, but it'd be an educational process for us as a committee to see exactly where you in the city are going in terms of the kind of designs or proposals that you're considering for this kind signage. I'm eyes on the street. You know, I'm right down there, and I get to see them when they're popping up, and it's difficult for me to know whether they have permits or not. So I'd be interested. Like, I know that they had their old signs, so I guess not my place, I guess, but I would have preferred they take down that sign. A good number of people find it offensive. I know that the wording's not particularly going to change, but it's interesting. People, before we were closed, were walking in the store, asked where the old store was because they were looking for the old signage. And when they walked down and saw the new sign, they came back in and says, "We will not walk in that store." So it's interesting that they chose it as a business approach. But my concern is in terms of deterrence. Like, these folks are still getting to, you know, keep this sign up, even though they didn't follow the proper process. And you know, anyway, it is what it is. It's out of my power, out of my control. So yeah.
Well, they're only
And-
keeping the
and
sign up
Ethel,
until they
if-
get the
if-
new sign.
Any idea when that would be?
Well, it may be a while because of the lockdown. I'm not sure that they can do sign manufacturing until the lockdown is lifted. Hopefully it'll
Well,
be
that's my
soon,
point
but
exactly. Yeah, that's my point exactly. I'm wondering why that it couldn't have come down if they hadn't followed the proper procedures and put up their old one, which was not offensive and probably even, you know, more compatible with the downtown before. It was just a thought. Anyway, and Ethel, would I be able to add to that as well, to the signage subcommittee?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, just, you know, in addition to that, I am going through my collection of photos and looking at that. I'm also going to be compiling a bit of a list or a summary of buildings now or businesses that have closed. So I'm in a separate kind of listing to show you, because those buildings will definitely be needing new signage. I've also found out that Pizza is actually redoing the entire facade of their building. So I'd like to make sure that they went through the proper process for that as well. And they will be putting up new signage too. I'm surprised we haven't lost more businesses than we have. And that may accelerate depending on how much longer this lockdown continues. So we can address that as well, perhaps at a later date. And are we able to speak anymore? Or Emily, could you update you? Once before you mentioned that city staff were actually updating the signage bylaw. What's the status of that right now?
I'm not sure. Suzanne Murchison who's our chief building official, for people who don't know. She's going to come to the committee when there's a draft, and there isn't a draft yet because she hasn't come to the committee. I don't know where she is on that. That's a building department driven project.
That's one of the reasons we have this committee, so that we can make recommendations for their consideration. So that's why we need to continue on our path here and get our report ready to come back to this committee.
Yep, fair enough. And as far as street signs, would this be an appropriate place to bring up the street signs and update where we're at with that?
No, I mean, the update is that engineering is going to buy new street signs as per the approved design. That's
and it
what's
was
happening.
approved there. Everybody, the city was okay with how we voted on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
The designs
That's all
are
I
good.
have for that. Yeah.
Okay, is there any correspondence?
No,
And so this is item 8 on your agenda, new or other business. And one of the things I'd like to have Emily comment on is this committee went back to the building department and said we wanted the doors on the armory to be wood. And I believe Emily has a good report for us.
yep, so they were happy to switch the materials out. They're originally gonna do metal and they're switching it, so that's good. So they were fine to change stuff, which is great.
Thank you. So that was something that the committee wanted to happen. So I just like you to know it did happen. Okay, any other new business?
I have a couple of miscellaneous items. If I think Ron had some stuff too. It doesn't matter when I go. It's all just kind of updates that you might want to know about. All right, I'll just go now since I'm talking already. So the first one is for the $1 Million Makeover grants. The next deadline for that is February 28th. So if you know anybody who is looking for money to do work on their heritage property, the 28th is the deadline for that. The next thing is at our last meeting, we had talked about asking some questions of our engineering department and potentially getting Corby to come to talk about the downtown reconstruction in Lindsay. Unfortunately, Corby's not able to come to the meeting at this time. He has something else going on during this time, which is unfortunate, but he said he'd be really happy to answer this committee's questions on the downtown reconstruction. So he suggested that if the committee wanted to put together some questions, comments, things they needed additional information on, if that could all be compiled and I could send it off to him and he could just go through it and I could send it off to the committee, that he could answer your questions that way. He's happy to chat to you. He's just not available during this time.
Well, I think we have another piece of information from Jim relating to what they've discovered under the pavement or sidewalks and what they've done with it. Could you fill us in, Jim?
Yeah, if you'll recall, I had mentioned just that you had reached out actually, Emily, or asked that you reach out to whoever and just encourage them, remind them again that if they find artifacts under the ground as they're digging or whatnot, just to call it to our attention and document it. And I mentioned also there were supposedly thousands of photos being taken of the work, certainly in the first block. And I thought that trend would continue on to the next one. About a week and a half ago, I was coming out of a bank, and I bumped into a fellow who looked official, and he was a lead hand, a wonderful fellow. And we chatted about it, and he said this particular crew, because this is a different tender, has no official. He's a lead hand, by the way. He looked like a supervisor, but he's a lead hand. And he said there's no real direction on this crew or this company to take photos or document what's going on. He was aware that he himself and some of the other construction workers were actually taking shots. And he said he would ask them if they'd be willing to share those. So I hope this is history in the making. I hope that they are documenting. The previous company did, in fact, take some pictures. But again, I'll follow up on that. So that was a week and a half ago. I said, well, are you finding any artifacts? And he said, no, oddly enough, this block, there seems to be absolutely nothing in the way of artifacts. He said, I heard that the first block had all kinds of things popping up. And he says, but no, nothing here. He says, but then again, we're doing the water lines, it's very shallow. So anyway, yesterday I happened to be walking down the street and saw Richard Kettle, who is the project manager for SEMA, the company that's in charge, overarching of the entire project, regardless of who has the tenders. And Richard's a great guy, and he saw me and he came over to chat and we talked about things, and he confirmed that there has been no real artifacts. And I said, he was under the impression that some of what had been discovered before had found its way to me, and nothing had ever found its way to me. So he was surprised at that. But I mentioned also, I said, well, if you're just dealing with the shallow waterworks right now, by the time you get to the sewers, I said, you do recall the ornate brick storm sewer. That was surprising to everybody, in absolutely mint condition. It looked like it had been installed the week before. And he described it as dating back to the 1880s, 1870s. And I said, so if you find any more of that, will you please give us a heads up? And he says, well, we did find it. And I said, when did you find it? He says, well, just in the last while. And I said, so where are you at with that? And they eliminated pretty much the entire length from William Street to Cambridge. They tore it out, destroyed it, and disposed of these bricks that are pristine. So the full length from Lindsay Street right up to Cambridge, thousands of bricks. You could probably have redone all the brick repairs that you needed to in historic downtown Lindsay. So that's an unfortunate aside there. I had previously said I've got a whole bunch of properties, and not a whole bunch of properties, but a lot of sizable property. And I would have gladly stored these vehicles. I would have sorted the bricks had they been delivered to me in a dump truck, if that had been possible. So Emily, you did reach out to them. I'm pretty sure you did. So I'm just wondering where the communication might have broken down there. Not to put anybody on the spot, and what's done is done. But if there are other discoveries, I think that we really need these folks to actually document and maybe give us a call, just or somebody, just to see if there's something worth saving.
I think that
Any
may be something
comment?
to touch base to. I think that might be something to touch base to Corby about, and I can add that into like the list of things for him to address, because he is the one who's coordinating the city's. Well, he's coordinating it for the city, so I think Corby is the right person to deal with that, and I'll get him to address it.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate. It's a tremendous loss. I don't like missed opportunities at any time, but this in particular would have been good. And I do note that from the previous time they found that fire vault from the hand pumpers, and that was in the first block, and that was destroyed before anybody could document. And some unique pieces of sewer where they actually plugged the end of this water pipe, and they shave and hammer in cedar stakes into it, and those kinds of things, they're now lost. But as far as the pictures, Richard, this fellow that told us that he had thousands of pictures, he's thinking now that might have been his own initiative. And he's also confirming that there doesn't seem to be any official strategy to these photos. So I don't know what the next steps would be to try and retrieve that. Richard did say he was trying to actually summarize them or get them together, and it was very, very time consuming, and he was having server problems. So if there's another strategy that we might be able to utilize or help the individual with, or if there's a way that they could send the photos somehow to us. I know you and I went through the exercise with the foundation issue, and I found that to be kind of demanding. And if not for you, I'd still be doing it. So I don't know, whatever you could suggest. But somehow I wouldn't want these photos lost.
I don't think there's any way that they're going to be sent through the internet. There's so many photos. They're going to have to be put on a hard drive by someone. I think that's realistically how they're going to have to be dealt with.
As a goodwill gesture, is that something that we could talk to them about? I remember initial dialogues of this kind of thing when they were doing the public consultation phase. I attended all 3 sessions, and I did speak with the principals, and there was 3 of them. I think it was Peter, Paul, and Lisa were the 3 representatives of SEMA. And I certainly had been told at the time that we would be able to have access to photos and whatnot. And I expressed the importance of this, and that it's history in the making, but also changing history in the fact of what's under the ground. Was there any requirement to have any kind of an archaeological study with this?
Yes, they would have done it. They would have had to do a Class EA, but it would have been done a number of years ago. So yes, they would have done an archaeological study with it because it's required for municipal infrastructure projects.
Do you think, Emily, that we could offer to purchase them a hard drive for them to put the pictures upon?
Yep. Yeah, it can just come out of the committee's budget.
I think that's an ideal expenditure. So if anybody would move that, I would appreciate it. That we purchase a hard drive for the purpose of containing the photographs taken during the reconstruction of Kent Street. Will someone move that? Anne? You're muted, so I can't hear.
I have a new puppy at my house, so you would be hearing continuous.
Yeah. So Anne so moves. Do I have anybody who will second in that?
I'll second.
Julia seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
I, yeah. And
Thank
can I
you.
add one more thing? You know,
No, you're costing us money.
as much as this is unfortunate, there has been some goodwill. I want to point out to the committee too that voluntarily at the end of the last process, the Hardco was the previous company that had the tender doing the work, and they approached us, and there is a parkette at Lindsay and Kent on the south side of the street there beside number 3 Kent. And they came in and just said, you know what, we would be thrilled if we could actually redo that entire parkette at our own expense and make it look identical to the rest of the downtown, which they did. They did a phenomenal job. So I don't think that this request would be too much to ask. I think that they will probably accommodate this. I think this is an oversight and it's an unfortunate thing, but let's just see what we can do and see what we can salvage from that. And I guess my other final thing is, how should we as a committee track buildings coming up for sale, or should we be tracking the historic buildings for sale in the Heritage District? There's a lot of interest. People are buying properties coming up from the GTA, which is a positive thing. There's a new initiative from economic development in trying to attract people here to open businesses and leave their other commercial areas wherever they come from. And but number 3 Kent, right beside the parkette, is for sale. And I say that because there could be other buildings come up for sale. Since they're designated buildings, perhaps we should be aware. Perhaps we could be of assistance in some way of providing information to the purchasers. But number 3 Kent as well, we've identified them before because they have a serious spalling problem on the side of that building, which needs repair. And the other point to consider too, in terms of monitoring the downtown, people have been asking me why the York building has all this green netting across the top. And Emily, I was wondering if you might be able to speak to that as well. So I'm asking 2 questions there.
Okay, so for the first question on the real estate thing, I already do that. So
Oh, do you?
when
Okay.
I keep track of all the buildings that sell, and also send letters to people when they do sell, to alert the new owners that they are in a heritage building and that they better follow the rules.
Good for you. Emily,
And
the enforcer.
unfortunately, sometimes yes. But a lot of real estate agents reach out to me about that stuff, so I keep track of that. So 3 Kent is for sale. One of the houses in Oak Street sold recently. That kind of thing. Then the other thing was, sorry, what was the other question?
They've got a serious brick spalling side of the building. I guess the owner had knocked a couple of vents through for a new furnace and possibly a dryer. And what it has done is, about midway down the wall, you look, it's done a serious amount of damage to the bricks. So I just didn't know
Well, they should
whether
have
we
gotten a
could be
heritage
calling
permit
that
for
to
that.
someone's attention.
They
Do what?
I'll reach out to the new owners when it's sold.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at
Well,
with
no,
that right now.
reach out to the new ones. This was done by the previous owner, and there were a lot of
Oh.
problems because they redid the entire building without permits initially. So Suzanne could probably write you a book on what went on. But anyway, at the same time, you've got a building that needs some significant repairs to the brick and in a timely fashion before it really worsens. I just didn't
Excuse
know
me, Jim.
what kind of recommendations.
Is this the same building, number 3? Are we talking about the
Yes, it
same
is.
building? Has the green netting around is number 3.
No, that's across the road.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm getting confused between what we're talking about here. So Emily's talking about number 3, I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
number
so-
3 is on, number
But-
3 is on,
Yeah.
number 3 is on the south side of the street, right beside the park that I just described at Lindsay and Kent.
Yes.
The York building with all the netting across the top has been deteriorating for years. The ornate brickwork up there, and during construction, due to the vibration, there was, I guess, a significant fear that some of the bricks might come loose. But anyway, there's something up there, and I was wondering if Emily knew anything about this.
Yeah, so they had reached out to me a number of months ago, saying that they wanted to do brick repairs and repointing, and they were looking for money. So they wanted to access some of the $1 million makeover money. So I directed them in that way and told them they had to get a permit. So I have talked to them about it. So they are intending on doing brick repointing. I'm not sure if the netting is up now just to make sure stuff doesn't fall down and kill someone, or if they're actually undertaking it yet. They haven't received any funding to do
Okay.
it. But I know that they have been looking for funding to do that work. So I think it's imminent that they're going to be doing some work there.
And is that exact restoration, or are they going to be eliminating some of those features?
No, they're just going to be repointing the brick, and if there's bricks that are badly spalled, swapping them out for equivalent. They're not getting rid of it, they're just restoring it. That was the
Okay.
conversation we had.
Thank you.
All right.
All I
Did
got,
you
I'll be
have
quiet now.
something, Ron?
Yeah, I just had an update on those buildings along the Scugog. I talked today to Dylan Robichaud he's executive assistant to Jamie Schmale, and he is on it for me. He said he will find out tomorrow who to deal with at Trent Severn Waterway, Parks Canada. These are the people that we're trying to find out the contact for these buildings. As you know, we talked about this before.
Yes.
And so I'm gonna find out very soon who the contact is for these buildings on the, it's near Pickerel Point, basically, it's where it's near, but they were given eviction notices. Nobody lives there, but the eviction notices and demolition, they wanted to evict whoever was there, which was nobody. They were basically used as camps, maybe ice fishing or whatever, but they had some significant historical value, we thought. And so I'm reaching out to Jamie Schmale's office through Dylan to find out who to deal with it in Peterborough. And I'll get back to the committee on who I find out.
Okay, thank you for the update, Ron.
Could I ask a question of Ron on that?
Through me,
Okay.
Ron.
Yeah, Ron, the last meeting I had actually mentioned something about reaching out to the college. I have been unsuccessful in finding a contact there. Do you know anybody at the college you could talk to about this? Maybe they'd be interested in it for educational purposes. And I recall the Heritage Committee or the Historical Society had an interesting partnership at one with the Board of Education, with the old jail museum. And I just didn't know whether they might, be interested in something or partnering in some way, whether that could be a dialogue at some point as a consideration. Do you know anybody at the college?
Yeah, I don't know anybody in particular, Jim, but I'll find out. Like, I can inquire. I will about that.
Yeah, I just thought it might be an interesting angle if you're looking for collective support. Again, the Conservation Authority really surprised me in the fact that they have grandfathered this in. I thought for sure that they would be all over wanting to tear this out, but the fact that they're saying it predates, I guess, some of their records, that's a very significant thing and a very significant opportunity. So there you go.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. I'll look into it, Jim.
Right.
Thanks, Ron.
Anything else?
A quick-
Anne?
Ron, when you're dealing with the TSW, I do know a couple people there, so if I can help you in any way, let me know. I know we're dealing with them on a couple of other issues, like the trees at the park and stuff over the last few weeks. they are just right on stuff right now. I don't know if everybody's working from home and just sitting by their phones or what's going on, but as soon as you send an email, they're answering right away. So that's a good sign, I think.
And Anne, was that Trail Towns as well, or is that something separate?
No, that was for Trail Towns and Environmental Action. We've got emerald ash borer in the trees at the lock, so they're coming down, and the town was wondering about them. So we were getting some information and what their plans were to replace them. They have a similar plan to what the city of Court de Lakes does to replace trees that they take down. It's just that they're looking at a much larger area, so they kind of coordinate it and plan it all together. So we might wait a while for replacements, but they will be replaced, which is nice to know.
Would Trail Towns be interested in these cabins in any way?
That wouldn't be I sit on the Bob Cajun Trail Town Committee. You might want to reach out to the Lindsay Trail Town Committee. You do have a separate RTO8 Lindsay Trail Town.
Because it is actually RR6 Lindsay, the address.
But like I
Thanks,
said, if I can give any help, Ron, let me know.
Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on. The next meeting, and I believe, Emily, we have to have a change date because of a council meeting.
Yep, so our original meeting was supposed to be March the 4th, but it's been moved to March the 11th because there's an all-day council meeting on the 4th. So we got bumped by the clerk's office. So that will be March 11th from 5 to 7. Hopefully we will be back to our hybrid in-person / Zoom meetings, because I know that's easier for some people who have iffy internet. But we will see. And I will let you know closer to the time what format we're going to be doing that in.
Right, thank you. And do I have someone who will make a motion to adjourn?
I would so move.
You would? Okay, and do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
And second, so
Thanks. Interesting meeting.
thank you, and we're happy to see you here, and hopefully Emily and I will be getting together with the new people to do a little information session.
Yeah,
I
I'll
don't
send
know.
around an email to the 3 of you, and we'll coordinate a time when we can all get together, and we'll give you a little bit more information about the committee and
Yeah.
also about like heritage stuff in general. So that when we're saying stuff, you're not like, what are you talking about?
That's good.
So
Thanks.
that introduction meeting will be coming up. Thank you all very much for your attendance, and I appreciate you all being here. Hopefully
Yeah, I'm
we'll
glad you're
see
here.
you at or March 11th or
Have a
before.
good evening, guys.
You
Good
too.
night all.
Right.
Thanks.